Hello boys and girls, how are you all? Welcome back to Sunya IAS PSIR course. This is lecture number 12, and this lecture we're going to continue with Thomas Hobbes, and we'll discuss in detail the first topic of Thomas Hobbes, his understanding of human nature. I concluded the last lecture, numbered 11, by briefly explaining as to why most thinkers begin their political inquiry, political theorization, visualization, expressing their thoughts by first examining the human nature. Why is that? Remember the example Hobbes himself gives of a wristwatch. To understand a wristwatch, it's a machine. We need to break it apart or deconstruct it. Take it apart, see and study the component parts. He was very different from how Aristotle understood things. Remember, Aristotle said every object in this world has an end goal, an end game, which the Greeks called as telos. But for Hobbes, nothing had telos. Why? Because the universe, including human beings, was made up of matter. And matter means particles in motion. How we understand modern physics, the standard model of physics of subatomic particles, that everything is made up of atoms, and atoms have subatomic particles, two of them, protons and neutrons, clumped together, that constitute the nucleus, with the electron whizzing and buzzing around it, right? And Hobbes had met Galileo, who taught the approach of scientific materialism, and Hobbes wanted to theorize study of politics like modern science in a theoretical way, like how Einstein would discover amazing properties of the universe like gravity, relativity, and how the universe works, what happens inside a black hole, how they form, how they die, the Hawking radiation, so to speak, right? So Hobbes, like our previous thinker Machiavelli, begins with the, not just Machiavelli, even if you remember Socrates and Plato, Aristotle, they talk about men being social animals. So essentially, they are talking about human nature. Aristotle talked about man being a political animal. That is also again a discussion on human nature, that men have reasoned speech, and this uniquely human capability and ability of reasoned speech is utilized and must be utilized to formulate common rules. Only then we can live as social beings. Only then we can avoid living like animals, like beasts in the jungle. So every thinker that you have studied so far has talked about human nature. But of course, Machiavelli went into some details. Hobbes doesn't worry about the details much. He's concerned mostly with the causality, the cause. Machiavelli said humans are bad, wicked, evil, ungrateful, weak. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates said human beings were essentially good on the one hand. On the other hand, according to all these three early Greek thinkers, all human beings were not alike in the sense some had more desire while some had more reason. Some had more mental ability while some had more physical ability. But Hobbes, like I mentioned many times before, is the first modern thinker, and one of the reasons why he is described as such as the first modern thinker is because he clearly proves that there are no natural aristocrats, there are no naturally excellent men, there are no naturally men of reason or rational men, or naturally men of desires, or men of more physical prowess, or men who are naturally meant to be donkeys, slaves. Hobbes disproves all of these claims, all of these beliefs, all of these assertions. He concludes and he proves that with his theory, with his science. He says all men are equal, and he says all men are equal in certain with respect to certain things, right? One aspect is all men have desire. If, how he says, the whole universe is made up of matter. Matter means particles in motion. So he says, he makes an assumption here. Remember, I'm using the word assumption. Words are very important here. So he makes an assumption. Remember, he is a proper theorist, and theorists like mathematical theorists, mathematicians, physicists, astrophysicists, they start with certain assumptions. Then they use their mathematics, their theorems, calculus, algebra, and then come to a conclusion. Something like this is equal to this, E is equal to mc squared, LHS is equal to RHS, right? CSAT stuff. So Hobbes starts with an assumption. First is fact. What is the fact? The universe is made up of matter. Based on this fact, he makes an observation and an assumption that the internal motions of particles, let's understand it, let's say, as the electrochemical reactions in the brain, and these cause desires, wants, needs, passions in us, the emotions, the want, the desire in us. Not just in some of us, like Plato said, who wanted these desirous people to be farmers or traders or the producer class. No, Hobbes said all of us have these internal motions. Therefore, all of us are desirous beings. Therefore, all of us are equal in one sense. What about another sense? One by one, I'll make you write all of this, but listen to my monologue first. Let's take another sense. All of us are equal in terms of desires, that we all have desires. Okay, fine. Then he says, we can even hurt or kill each other. We may be different in terms of strength. Some of us may have more physical strength, big, hatte. Some of us may have more mental cunning, dimag. Some of us may be clever, right? And some people who neither have physical strength nor have mental abilities have the strength of numbers, the power of numbers. बोलते हैं ना भाई, छोटू से पतले से दिमाग में कुछ नहीं है, बंदे को बुलाता है, लड़के को बुलाते हैं मोहल्ले में to fight with you, to fight his battles, right? So people bring in their friends, gang up on you to hurt you, right? So people, and take the example of the strongest man, what the Chinese say, what Kautilya says. If you're a short, thin, physically less powerful person, how do you take on a person who is like a Ghatotkach? How do you do that? Even the strongest man is vulnerable, weak when he's asleep, right? You can always kill a man when he's sleeping, even if he's the strongest man in the world, right? This is how clever men operate, right? So what is Hobbes saying here? All of us can kill each other, hurt each other. That also makes us equal. People may have physical strength, mental strength, or strength in numbers. Then all of us, how do we fulfill our desires? With power. It may be money power, or economic power, power of knowledge, power over people, But see, what is power according to Hobbes? Power means being able to, the ability you have to decide or determine, influence future course of actions. Now let's take the example of a bush. Let's say nearby where you live, there's a tree nearby or a bush of flowers or plants which have berries and nuts and fruits nearby, tubers which people need to eat to survive. Right? What is power here? Power is, okay, you have foraged and gathered some amount of food for your survival and your family's survival. Okay, you've eaten, you're satisfied for the day. You need to go back to that same bush for tomorrow's survival, because as human beings we tend to think about the future also, right? So you have to go back to that bush. So you need to have power over that bush where you find all these foodstuffs. What if someone else takes it? To make sure you have complete control over that bush of plants, you need to have complete control over the piece of land where it grows, right? Land is estate, property, real estate. So over time, how do we make sure that we have control over resources? We need to have control over people. That is power. Power means what? Our ability to control our own future and that of others. Our ability to control the future course of actions. If we want $1 billion, we need to have the power to make it and secure it. And to secure $1 billion, we are human beings, we are very insecure, right? To secure and safeguard $1 billion, we want $1 more billion. So what do we want essentially? Power after power, power after power. And when does this desire for power stop? It stops when we die. So Thomas Hobbes calls human beings naturally inclined, naturally designed to seek power after power that stops, that ceases in death. So it is a relentless, endless, never-ending pursuit of power after power. Right. So again, on how many counts we are equal, he is proving. On the count of all of us being desirous beings, desirous men, on the count of all of us having the capability of killing each other, on the count of all of us having the desire for power after power that stops, ends, ceases in death. See how he is building on his own ideas, one at a time. This is like you solve mathematics, algebraic equations using formulae. You go step by step. Yeah, some of you are expected to use what are they, cheat codes or tricks or something, right, to solve CSAT quickly, right? But as a kid, you learn mathematics step by step. Albert Einstein did not use tricks to solve equations. He can't use that, right? Or it works only in these exams, entrance exams, CAT and CSAT, right? Now, so what do we write in the introduction? We write a quote, a statement by Professor C.L. Vapor. He says, Hobbes' theory is centered around the individuals. He is first and foremost concerned about the well-being, survival of the individuals, right, in the state. Therefore, he begins with the study of the individual. And when we say studying individuals, what do we mean? Studying the psychology, the human mind and the human nature of individuals, of men, of humans. So Hobbes' theory, Hobbes' theory is centered around the individuals. Therefore, he begins his inquiry around the nature / psyche of the individuals. So in the introduction, you're writing why Hobbes starts with the study of human nature. Right? Another point would be, you can write here, I'll dictate. To understand the state and why men must obey the state. फिर से बोल रहा हूं, to understand the state and why men must obey the state, comma, the component parts / elements. फिर से बोल रहा हूं, the component parts / elements must be studied first. Colon, human beings, full stop. So state, समझ, political science is about state, it's about power, it's also about the question as to why we must obey the state. We must obey why we must obey the state. To understand this, we need to understand individuals who are the core components, who make up the state, who form the state. Okay, so this is what the statement I dictated, you write here, this side of the introduction. Let's move on to the next segment, boys and girls. The next segment is the context. Let's write about the background in order to establish a continuum, a flow, build up. जैसे हीरो का एंट्री से पहले बिल्डअप होता है ना, राइट? सो द कॉन्टेक्स्ट. So let's start with Socrates, all the previous thinkers, Plato, the Trimurti, Aristotle, right? Two things. One, first they say what? Social and political beings. Let's not use the word animals here. Beings. Number two, they also believe in the existence of natural aristocrats. That is, masters and slaves. Masters and slaves. This is something everybody believed, and Plato had another viewpoint. He said there are men of reason. See, I may be writing in short form. Okay? If I am again and again repeating the same in the same segment, you can shorten it too. But if it is mentioned just once, then you write it in full. Okay? अगर मैं फिर से men of reason इसी segment में लिखा, then you can shorten it by encircling it. Otherwise, you write in full when you are making your notes. Men of reason, then men of spirit, and men of appetite or desire. Right? The ancient Greeks. Now, what did the medieval Christians say? Medieval Christian theology. Saint Augustine, Saint Aquinas, what did they say? According to them, men are born sinners, but they can be good. How? By not having desires, not committing any sins, not having sexual desire, the sin of lust, not having desire for food, the sin of gluttony, not having the need or desire to sleep all the time, that is laziness, or the sin of sloth, right? Not having jealousy towards anyone, the sin of envy, not having too much pride, the sin of vanity. अगर तुम ये सब sin प्रैक्टिस नहीं करोगे, अपने बिहेवियर में रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं करोगे, तब तुम्हें टिकट मिलेगा कहां? स्वर्ग. Can be good and you can get a ticket to heaven. Right. According to them, medieval Christian theologists like Aquinas, Augustine, men are born sinners, but can be good and must be good in order to avoid purgatory or hell or perdition, naraka. Okay. Now comes the Renaissance thinker, Machiavelli. What did he say? He had some sort of a bit of contradiction in his views. He has one view towards human beings in the Prince, one view towards human beings in the Discourses. He liked people of ancient Rome, but he didn't like people of his own times. And that is one of the reasons why he cannot be called a modern thinker. He's a child of his times and his locality, geography, Italy. Right? A true thinker can be applicable, applied, his ideas can be utilized in all ages, in all places, across time and space. Right? कोई भी जमाना ले लो, Hobbes का ideas have some value, have some realistic touch to it. Right? So Machiavelli's views were contradictory. I'm declaring it, I'm clarifying this firstly. Right? So let's say, on the one hand, he says, elite men are wicked. Elite men in politics, men in powerful positions, elite men, they are wicked. They are weak. They are evil. And they are untrustworthy. And during his times, the Aam Aadmi had become very weak, timid, submissive. Weak. He respected the Roman So write that clarification, respected the Romans. Why? Because they had a lot of virtues. Roman virtues. They were courageous, brave. They had virtues, civic virtues. They had a sense of duty, commitment to the state, to the motherland. They were ambitious, God-loving. So this is the context. We have established all the thinkers we have studied thus far and their views on human nature. पूरा अपना हॉब्स का एंट्री का बिल्डअप रेडी. अब आएगा अंधेरी रात में मसीहा हॉब्स. What does he say? The method he uses, boys and girls, the method. That is scientific materialism. What does it mean? He learned from whom? Galileo. Galilee, right? So what do they say? What did these guys say? Scientific materialists, the universe, mankind, men, all are made up of matter, which is particles in motion. Right? These particles are internal motions in the human body. In the human body. And these motions, they cause desires. Right? What kind of desires? Very important. First, physical desires. For example, our desire, want and need for food, for sex. Next desire, social desires. Such as honor, wealth, status, glory. आपको रैंक 1 चाहिए ना भैया जी? रैंक 1 चाहिए. प्रेस्टीज, पावर, पीपीपी, पावर, पैसा, prestige. You want these, right? These are what? Social desires. Also see, this is, we're talking about matter, materialism. It is also called as mechanistic understanding of the universe. And remember this word mechanistic, because state is also viewed as a machine by Hobbes. Why? God did not create the state. Medieval thinkers believed that God sent kings to rule over mankind. That the kings were anointed by God. Kings were not appointed by the people. According to these medieval Christians, kings were not appointed by people, nor were they elected by them, nor were they appointed or selected by parliaments. They were, like I mentioned in the previous classes, anointed, anointed, anointed by God to rule over mankind and rule over men in his stead, in the Almighty's stead, in his behalf. In place of him, obviously God cannot come to the earth to personally supervise the ruling, so he sent his representatives. These kings were these representatives. And if you understand the story of Adam and Eve, the mythology, if Adam was the first man and the first king or the first monarch on the earth, the kings we have in our world, they are the descendants of Adam. So this theory was called as what? Remember the previous class? Divine rights of kings, divine rights theory. right? Now, mechanistic understanding. So state, if it is not sent by God, what is it then? It is an artificial creation of men. Why am I using the word artificial? Think about your food. We use the word artificial sweeteners, artificial coloring, right? Real juice, organic food. What are these? If you eat an orange, a fruit orange, or your musambi, you get the natural juice of it with the fiber. But if you drink Tropicana's orange juice, what do you get? Artificial juice with artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, artificial sweeteners, artificial preservatives. And why are they artificial? Because they are man-made. Right? They are man-made. So anything that is man-made is artificial. And a painting, take a painting for example. What is that? It is art. Art means artificial. Painting is not made by God. It is not made by nature. It is made by us human beings. So anything made by men is artificial. Artificial, art, sab same, man-made things. Right? State किसने बनाया? Did it grow on a tree? Did it evolve in a jungle? No, we made it. We made the organization of the state. So Hobbes viewed it as an artificial machine that serves us, that secures our needs. What is the most basic need? Survival. What threatens our survival? Ourselves. We threaten each other's survival, boys and girls. So state is an institution whose first and primary duty is to regulate the conduct, regulate the behavior, regulate the interaction between individuals, you and me, you and I, so that we do not hurt each other. That is the first purpose. Later on, more responsibilities and duties, the scope of the state was enlarged later on. But according to Hobbes, let's talk about the most basic requirement as to why the state is required and needed. That is security. Without security that the state can provide to us, we cannot survive. So our fundamental desire is survival. And for survival, we need security. Therefore, security is our fundamental desire. Right? So remember this word, mechanistic understanding. Very important. When you write answers, these words, these keywords fetch you marks. Now, Hobbes says we are naturally utilitarian. Human beings are naturally utilitarian. Humans. What does it mean? It means we like things, do things, prefer things, want things that bring us joy, that bring us pleasure, that bring us happiness. And we avoid things that cause us pain, cause us misery, cause us harm, that bring us pain and tears. Right? So we like things that bring us pleasure and we avoid things that bring us pain. This is called as utilitarian approach, which of course later when I teach John Stuart Mill, I'll go into detail the ethics of utilitarianism. Now understand the basic understanding, the origin of utilitarian thinking, that human beings like things that bring them joy. Okay, so first thing, right? So whatever things we are attracted to, so things that attracts us, that brings us joy, pleasure, happiness, that is called as what? Good. And things what repels us, किस चीज से दूर जो दूर जाते हैं हम, अवॉइड करते हैं, that brings us pain, that brings us misery, right? And we call these things evil. Now, one important implication here is regarding what Hobbes is saying. What does it imply? What is the implication here? There is no ultimate good. There is no ultimate good. For Plato, doing one's duty was the ultimate good. For Aristotle, living a virtuous life within a political community was the ultimate good. For medieval Christians, following the teachings and the commands and the dictates of the church, securing a place in heaven, the kingdom of God, was the ultimate goal of life. But what Hobbes is saying is, when he is calling us utilitarian beings, he is saying that there is no ultimate good. जो हमें पसंद है इंडिविजुअली वो गुड है, जो पसंद नहीं है वो evil है. If you like eating, eating is good. So it is entirely subjective, based on individual preferences. What is good, what is evil, right? So therefore, if there is no ultimate good, if there is no good life in a philosophical sense, therefore there is no good life or a particular telos. He is going completely against the ancient Greeks and the medieval Christians. So there is no final or ultimate goal of life. If everything is about our pleasure, then what is good then? That he calls as felicity. Felicity, remember this, the word felicity. What is felicity, boys and girls? Felicity, let's define it. Felicity is the continual progress or success in obtaining what we desire from time to time. Okay, so there are three parts to this definition, boys and girls. This is the definition of felicity, right? Now, the continual progress means, let's give your own example. I think, which iPhone is trending in the market in this year, 2024? I think iPhone 15. Okay, so you got an iPhone 15. Normally आम आदमी बोलते हैं कि हाँ अगर आईफोन 15 है 16 मत लो, 17 लो या 18 लो, ठीक है जी. वैसे it depends on what you call good. It's all individual perspective, right? So you got an iPhone, you're happy for how long? 1 day, 2 day, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, fine, you're happy. Is that the end goal of your life? So you will not buy anything? पूरा लाइफ तृप्ति हो गया, सार्थक हो गया, बस खत्म? नो. आईफोन ले लिया, अभी गाड़ी लेना है, गाड़ी ले लिया, अभी घर लेना है, घर ले लिया, अभी शादी करना है, then kids को iPhone, kids को घर, kids को car. So our desires keep shifting, jumping from time to time, right? See here, so it is the felicity is not just one stage of happiness. क्या भाई खरीद लिया, खुश, संतुष्ट, happy. No, felicity is a continuous process of happiness that we obtain, that we secure by obtaining objects that we desire, again from time to time. So it is the continual success in getting what we want in different times, one after the other, right? I can't tell my kids, देखो बेटा मैंने आपको आईफोन दिलाया, अभी कुछ मत मांगना 50 साल के लिए. चलेगा ऐसे? नहीं ना, ठीक है. This is felicity, right? So what do we want? We are not looking for one shot pleasure, one off pleasure. जैसे वन टाइम पासवर्ड बोलते हैं ना, वन शॉट प्लेजर नहीं है कि हाँ भाई गाड़ी खरीद लिया, खत्म बात, लाइफ all good, done and dusted with life. No, it is a continuous process, because what did I say? The desires are caused by the internal motions. Do these internal motions stop? They don't. They don't, right? Hobbes कहता है कि हाँ ये रुकता है जब मरते हैं हम. That these motions stop when we die. But actual physics देखोगे, it never stops, right? Just because we die and our body is decomposing matter, does it mean the electrons stop whizzing around the atoms, around the neutron, the nucleus? No, right? But anyway, rudimentary science था Hobbes की दिमाग में, 400 years ago he lived, right? So he said, these desires never stop till we die. Even when you're old, you tell your grandchildren, बेटा जल्दी शादी करो, बेटा जल्दी बच्चा करो. Even grandchildren have their own desires, grandparents have their own desires. They may not have physical desires of buying things, of eating, but they have other social desires or familial desires. They want to see their children and their grandchildren happy and succeed and get on with their lives. So desires to hai. Take the example of sadhus and nagas and aghoras and Muni Maharaj and sannyasis and panditjis, all these ascetic people, sadgurus, they also have desires. If their desire, if their wish is to go to the mountains and meditate, that is also a desire they have. You may have physical desires, they are having spiritual desires. They may call their desires as higher, you may call yours desires as lower, whatever, but they are desires nonetheless. They are desires after all, right? So सबके पास क्या है? Desire है. So it is, since it is time to time, therefore happiness not a stable or a permanent condition. Not a stable or a permanent condition. Now we'll see how this felicity can be secured or achieved. Felicity requires what? Power. Right? So here we see felicity means obtaining what we desire from time to time. Right? So here we understand that felicity requires power. But what is the problem among human beings? That we live in scarcity. If all human beings have desires and these desires never end till death, it means we all have unlimited desires. Yes or no? And we know what is sustainable development, what is unsustainable development, why we are polluting, why we are not leaving anything behind for the future generations, our posterity, our grandchildren and theirs, so on and so forth. Why? Because we have unlimited desires, and the resources that we have to fulfill our desires, they are scarce, they are finite, they are limited. This is a problem, a huge problem, right? So because resources are not, see, there are abundant resources. What did Gandhi say? There is enough for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. Right? So there is indeed abundance when it comes to resources, but they are finite, not infinite. Take land, for example. Right? Land will always be the best asset, the best property, the best wealth form. Why? That is why it is called as real estate. Because that is, that if you let's say find in one of Jupiter ka jo moon hai, yeah, if you find a golden asteroid in the asteroid belt with unlimited amounts of gold or unlimited amounts of diamond, what does it mean? There's no value for diamond or gold anymore. If you're able to go send a space probe, mine them, bring it back to Earth, gold and diamonds and all these precious stones and metals, they lose their value. But can you ever find land like that? Can you find real estate on Mars? Can you live on Venus? No, you can't. So land will always be the real estate. Estate means property. It is real estate because it will always be limited, no matter what. Right. So we have a very, it's a very big predicament, horrible problem we have. Scarce resources, but unlimited desires. What will this make us? What will this situation and condition and state make us? It will make us insecure, right? Resources are finite or limited, but desires for our felicity is infinite or unlimited. That makes us what? Insecure of losing what we have or not getting what we want. जो है वो खो सकते हैं और जो कल what we require or what we want वो मिल नहीं सकते, कोई और ले लेगा. So how do you secure power? By getting more power, right? So if it is insecurity, what do we require? Power after power. That is, insecurity drives us to secure power after power, because we are never satisfied with moderate power after power, with moderate power. Therefore, we are driven by our insecurities of either losing what we have or not getting in the future what we want, this insecurity drives us to seek power after power. And when does this end? When do our desires end? In death. So our struggle and competition and our seeking of power also ends when we die. Right. So if you want to write a clarification here regarding the insecurity, what is the insecurity we have? In brackets, write of losing what we have or not securing what we want. Okay, clarification written. Let's conclude with this famous quote. There are certain famous quotes, one being, life of man in the state of nature is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. We'll come to that. Avi, here's another famous quote. What is that? That life of man, so he concludes, therefore, life of man, rather write general inclination of man. General inclination of man. मतलब हमारा behavioral propensity, our behavioral predisposition, our natural attitude, the general inclination. The general inclination of man is a perpetual, मतलब continuous, perpetual, relentless, जो रुकते नहीं है, relentless desire for power after power that ceases, मतलब जो stop करता है, that ceases only in death. That ceases only in death. Right? So what has he said here? He has said we are power hungry individuals. This is very important to understand international relations theory of realism. The classical understanding of realism is just like how individuals are power hungry, like Hobbes says, the same way states are also power hungry. Individuals are power hungry for their survival. So are states at the international level who are power hungry, which are power hungry for survival. There is competition and seeking of power, struggle for power. Right. So keep this in mind. Right. Now, next. Now we'll see equality among men. How? First count. All men made up of what? Matter. That is, they have internal motions, and these internal motions, they cause desires, which all men have. See the circle here. All men have these desires. So men are equally desirous individuals. Right. Now, what is the other count, other ground on which he says all men are equal? We have desires, all of us, and all of us are capable of securing our desires. All of us are equally capable of securing our desires. So this capability has three aspects. Physical strength. Some of us may be physically strong. We can use force to secure what we want. Some of us have mental abilities. Such as cunning, clever, being clever. Or some of us may have, if we have neither, we may have numbers, groups, gangs, etc. Basically, what he's saying is, all men can kill each other. What has history taught us in this regard, boys and girls? Powerful and even the most powerful individuals have been killed. Julius Caesar had the support of the people, was the hero of the Romans. He also was the greatest general the Romans had seen. He had the army behind him, the junta behind him. Still he was killed. By whom? The senators, the legislators thought the only way to kill him was to murder him inside the Senate, on the floor of the Senate, the Roman Parliament. These weak old men snuck in secretly inside their robes, knives inside Parliament, and they murdered, stabbed Julius Caesar 27 times. He lay dead on the floor of the Roman Senate. Abraham Lincoln, 19th century president of America, 16th president, assassinated. Exactly 100 years later, John F. Kennedy, assassinated. Archduke of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1914 was assassinated. Indira Gandhi, with so much security, was assassinated. Right? History has taught us that anybody could be killed. Right? So men are equal in this sense too, in this sense and in this sense. Right? And since he is saying all men are desirous, he is directly challenged the Greek, challenged, nahi, disproved. He proved the Greeks wrong. He challenged the Greek view of natural aristocrats. I made you write this in the context. Remember the segment contexts. Aristocracy, aristocrat matlab the excellent, noble, elite men with elite, high, supreme knowledge, wisdom, reason, skills, etc. Right? Now let us see how Hobbes understood reason. Before that, let's understand humans have two qualities. Number one, passions. Passions are what? Desires, emotions. They are natural. Why they are natural? Because they are caused by the internal motions. The particles in motions, they are natural to us. We are born, we are made that way. And if something is natural, it must also be in abundance. We are passionate creatures of desires. We are passionate beings, and passion is natural to us. What is the other quality? The other quality is reason. If reason is not caused by any natural internal motions, no. So we are more about passions. Yes, we do have reason, but we are not born with it. We are designed to acquire, get, obtain, build reason, evolve reason over time. Right? With age comes wisdom, they say, right? And when we are kids, take the example of our own childhood. When you were a kid, if someone gave you a box of chocolates, would you say, "Oh, sugar is bad for you"? Would you do that? No, right? You would take the box of chocolates and eat as much as possible till your mother stopped you. But today, if you're given a box of chocolates, will you gobble up all of it? Eat all of it? No. You will do calculations. Okay, I have a box of 10 chocolates. I'll eat one chocolate a day so that I can satisfy my joy. I can have this pleasure of consuming chocolates for 10 days. So you're making a calculation. Then you may think, okay, if I eat chocolates, it may give instant gratification, instant happiness and pleasure, but long term I may become obese, I may become fat, or a diabetic, right? I may get diabetes. So you're doing calculations. Whether to calculate कि हाँ भाई, let me prolong this happiness, रोज एक एक खाऊंगा, or let me avoid this because this is dangerous. Sugar is as bad as tobacco or alcohol, or even worse. So this ability to calculate cost benefit analysis, that is reason. So what is reason? Reason is the ability to calculate, right? And this ability to calculate, it is acquired over time. Let's take the example of the taste of alcohol, beer. If you give a spoon of beer or whiskey to a kid, first of all, that is illegal. Don't do that. Do you think the kid would like it? Because तो कड़वा है, पसंद नहीं आएगा. But if you give it to someone who drinks, who's used to drinking, बोलेगा यार मजेदार है, best taste है. Because the taste of alcohol, that kadwa taste, is an acquired taste. It takes time for you to start liking it. But naturally, we are used to liking sugar. We like some things which are sweet, right? Because that is innate. We are born to like sweet things. That's why sugar is the biggest addictive, right? So it is acquired over time. This ability to calculate, add the benefits, subtract the negatives, the demerits, the costs, that is acquired over time. It comes with education and experience. Right, but passion क्या है? It is abundant. It is active all the time. Most of us, for a long time I used to wake up in the morning, I would ask mom, what's for breakfast? Oh, I want this, I don't want dosa, I want rava idli, I want that, all the things that I like. So kya hai? Passion, things I like. Recently, since the recent past, what do? I calculate, okay, if I eat this, will it make me dull, lazy throughout the day? Will this make me energetic? Will this give me the required protein that my body needs? Or all these calculations I do. So I'm basically being more rational by choice with effort, right? So the effort क्यों लगा रहा है? क्योंकि reason is inactive in us. Most of the things we do in a day, we do based on our pleasure requirement, our passions. Okay, what do I eat? When do I take a nap? What do I watch on the television? We are passionate beings. Our passion is always abundant and active in us. But reason, because it is artificial. Why artificial? हम सीखते हैं. We're not born with it, right? We make a conscious effort to make it, to learn it. So it is artificial. And therefore it is inactive and less abundant. Therefore it is dormant. It is less in us, unlike passion. Understand reason also as prudence, samajhdari. Right. Let me explain to you how Hobbes understood, how he saw reason developing, how it develops in us, how human beings who may not be born with reason but certainly are capable of developing reason, right? Okay, remember what Aristotle said, we have the ability of speech and reason, reasoned speech. Similarly, Hobbes says that human beings are the only animals that can speak, right? So when we speak, we make rules of language. Okay, hi. So hi is a sound you're making from your mouth. Hi means it's a greeting, right? So we decide, okay, this sound means this meaning. This is the sound, this is the word, and this is the meaning. Hi is not just, when you're saying hi, you're not just making a sound, you're not just saying ki greet kar rahe ho, you're also eliciting another hi, right? So there is a consequence to what you're saying, to the sound you're making. If you say hi, someone else will also say hi. If you say bye, someone else will also say bye. If you say bhai tum pagal ho, wo bhi batayega tu aur bada pagal, right? So it all starts with our speech, the sounds we make, and we agree that this sound means this sound means that. And making certain sounds, speaking certain things will result in consequences, good or bad. Right? So we communicate. Right? So पहले sound, speech, language, इसे आता है definitions. Okay. This means this. Okay, hi means a greeting. You define, what do you define, right? It's a way of saying, if it's a way of greeting in the English language, and it's a very casual, informal way of greeting. Hello is much more formal, right? So पहले sound करना, complex sounds we make, and we agree on language, then we agree on words, then we agree on definitions, then we agree and debate on the consequences. For example, hello, hello sir, So what do you think? Okay, I am respectfully greeting someone. I can expect safely that similar response मुझे मिलेगा. If you say hello idiot, someone will also, so that is dangerous because you're angering someone. So here again you're doing cost benefit, how I should say, what I should say, so that I can get this in return. It's all give and take, right? So ये calculation क्या है? यही तो है reason. So पहले शब्द, पहले आवाज, then शब्द, then rules of language की ये आवाज मतलब ये meaning है, then meaning आया तो definition, then definition का consequences, then debating, reasoning within yourself कि भाई ये किया तो वो आएगा, वो किया तो ये मिलेगा. This is reason. This is how reason develops. And this takes a lot of conscious efforts, and humanity has done it over time. So reason, understand it as an inner voice or our conscience, अंदर की आवाज, that guides us, guides our choices, guides our conduct, guides our behavior, guides our actions. I said I avoid eating sugar. Why? Because it helps me prolong my life. I will not get diabetes. I will not become a diabetic. I can burn more fat. Therefore, I can live a healthy, long life. So, reason is enabling me to preserve myself. What is the first desire all of us have? To survive. So, reason helps men. When you're driving fast, suddenly you see the speedometer, you've reached more than 100 kilometers per hour. You suddenly realize I may crash, I may meet with an accident or kill someone on the road or go to jail. So what do? You slow down. You apply the engine brakes, slowing down the accelerator. Why? Either to avoid death or someone else's accidental death and you go into jail. So तुम्हारा fear activate हो रहा है, तुम्हारा डिजायर फॉर सर्वाइवल एक्टिवेट हो रहा है. ज्ञान कौन दे रहा है? अंदर की आवाज जो है रीजन. सो रीजन अल्टीमेटली, मोर देन एनीथिंग, बेसिकली इट हेल्प्स अस इन सेल्फ प्रेजर्वेशन. दैट इज नथिंग बट बायोलॉजिकल सर्वाइवल. And this is the most basic desire. And this can come with security. जो देगा कौन? सरकार, state. So reason tells us that peaceful plus civilized life is under rule-based authority. So first, also understand why Hobbes is doing all these theories. Remember, he lived in the times of the English Civil War, where sovereignty was divided. Right? Civil war means your neighbors are your enemies. One of your neighbors may believe in the power of the king, in the authority of the king. One of your neighbors may believe in the authority of parliament. If someone hurts you, if you go to the police station, if the police station is the friend of the king, then you will not get justice. If he is friend of parliament, you may not get justice. So who will you go to? Who is the authority that will protect you? So what is civil war? Civil war is equal to arajakta, anarchy, chaos, bloodshed, disorder. So what is he justifying? Hobbes is justifying why we need the state. and how the state should be. Should it have divided sovereignty or centralized authority, absolute authority? So to justify absolute authority, he is understanding human nature, how human beings behave with each other. Based on that, he will give the conclusion as to what kind of a state we require. Right. Another thing, human beings are antisocial. Human beings are antisocial, right? Our Trimurti, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, what did they say? Human beings were essentially social animals, right? But Hobbes, what is he saying? All have desires, but society's resources are scarce. Therefore, all struggle for power over each other, among each other. Right? But Hobbes is saying human beings are competing and seeking power after power in a society where society's resources are limited. Right. So when you're competing with each other over limited resources, will you like each other? No. Right. So Hobbes is saying humans have nothing to gain from each other. But nature makes us, nature compels us to live in the company of others. So to live in the company of others, what do we require? A government, है ना, that regulates our conduct. अगर government गायब हो गया तो therefore क्या होगा? You just close your eyes and imagine if tomorrow, if the government disappears, if the police disappear, if the law courts disappear, if men in uniform who enforce the rules, who protect each other, who protect us, if they disappear, what will happen? Violence, right? Complete violence. We may hurt each other because we want the resources. So what happens? Therefore, in the absence of government, there is war of all against all. War of all against all. Each and every one of us will be at war with each and every one of us. There will be war of all against all. Right. So Hobbes is viewing human beings as antisocial. Right. But is he saying similar to what Machiavelli said? Is he saying in similar vein, Machiavelli said men are wicked, cruel, evil, weak. Hobbes is not saying that. It's like Hobbes would say, if you men are antisocial, desirous, can kill each other, right? So he's not saying men are bad. He's not, calling someone bad, calling someone good or evil is passing a judgment, value judgment. Take example, let me see. If, when you see nature documentary, if you see a lion catching a deer and devouring it, or mauling it and consuming it, will you call lion evil? No, right? That's how nature made lions. It is similar. It is the same here. Human beings are put in this situation by nature. We are made up of matter which has internal motions, and these causes desires, and all of us have unlimited desires but limited society's resources. Therefore, we are competing with each other. So there is nothing evil about it. There is nothing bad or good about it. It's just how we are. There is no option. We are not inherently bad. It's just the condition makes us that way. So what is the solution for this? Living under government, living under rules. Right? So Hobbes is actually deeply concerned about the safety, security, survival of whom? The individuals. He is studying the individuals, telling that we are selfish, competing for power, but he doesn't call us bad and rather compares us to the lion in the forest, that is how nature has made us. So he wants to what? Give us security by providing us rules and government, a sovereign authority. So who is he concerned about? Is he concerned about God? No. Is he concerned about the state? No. State is an artificial machine, an instrument. For whom? In whose service? The individual. So what is this? So we have to write about Hobbes's individualism. So what is Hobbes concerned about? Deeply concerned about the survival of the individual. Remember when Hobbes was born in the year 1588, the year of the Spanish Armada? His mother goes into labor when she hears that the Spanish fleet was spotted off the coast of the English Channel across the shores, that the Armada was coming, the Spaniards would invade England. She was scared. She goes into labor. She gives birth to young Hobbes prematurely, before the due date. So what did he say later in life? He said, Fear and I were Judwa brothers. Fear and I were born twins together. It followed me everywhere like a shadow. What is the greatest fear he had? What is the greatest fear we have? Greatest fear. अभी तुम्हारा fear है, fail हो जाऊंगा. और उससे भी ज्यादा greatest fear क्या है? मरना, मौत, death. That too a sudden and violent death, because we all know कि हम तो मरेंगे future में. But how we should not die? A sudden violent death, someone killing us, or we dying, meeting with an accident or dying, unforeseen death. That is what we fear the most, right? Because he was worried about, he was fearful, individuals are fearful of sudden and violent and unforeseen. If something is sudden, you have not prepared, you're not prepared for it. Unforeseen death, mort. Right. Then he also says, felicity is an individual trait. Why? Because it is internal to us. Why? Because the motions are also internal to us. My desire for felicity and power is caused by the motions, internal motions inside me, inside my brain, electrochemical reactions, right? So what I desire, you may not desire. Plato क्या था? Collectivist. All human beings want this, all human beings want that. Hobbes is saying all human beings want only one thing, survival. बाकी सब अलग अलग है. I love reading books. I like reading non-fiction books. And in fiction, I like reading sci-fi books, science fiction, or fantasy novels, like Lord of the Rings, like The Hobbit, like Harry Potter. Right? Science fiction, I like reading Dune. The three-body problem. What do you read? You may have different tastes in books. You may not even like books. I like old black and white films. You may like modern day Netflix films. Right. You like Bollywood, I may like South Indian movies. You may like eating, I don't like eating. I like cricket, you may like something else. Right. We are individuals with different preferences, different tastes, different desires. And my desire, you cannot understand, and your desire, I cannot understand. Right. Let's say when Mahavira and Buddha wanted to give up everything in life, you think their parents said, wow, shabash, jao, तपस करके आओ 12 साल, तुम्हारा थ्रोन सिंहासन सब छोड़ के चले जाओ, इसलिए तो पैदा किया तुम्हें. Will they say that? Did they say it? Did they approve of their choices? No. They decided, they wanted, for them it was desire कि भाई spiritual life is more important for me. Buddha said, Mahavira said, all great men, many great men say this. Because it was their internal motions that drove them to that. Their parents, their own parents could not understand it. What you want deeply may not be comprehended or comprehensible by your parents. Despite being your mummy, papa. So he is saying individuals have different values, different desires, different choices, and different preferences, and likes and dislikes. So Felicity is an individual trait. So he's concerned about individuals. He's not clubbing all individuals as one. He's saying everybody is different, but एक ही common है. You may be in India today, you may go back in time through a time machine to an India 1,000 years ago. You may go to America or China. You may live among the Muslims or the Christians or the Hindus or the Jews or the Slavic Christians or the Aboriginals. You go to any culture in any time of human evolution. What was the one desire, the one value that was common to all across time and space? Desire to live. Only common desire. Remember I said what you desire is what is good. That is self preservation, and it is common and preferred as the most important value across time and space. मतलब तुम कहीं पे भी जाओ, कोई भी जमाने पे जाओ, it is the same across time and space. So we see these two segments. One is saying antisocial. Then he's a hardcore. He's a pure individualist. Even Aristotle is also an individualist. He was not as collectivist as Plato. He did talk about common good, everybody coming together, common rules, banao, debate, discussion in parliament, then make rules, live together, eudaimonia. He did talk about it. But he also said individuals have diverse, different and distinct preferences. And reconciling, harmonizing and balancing these diverse concerns and preferences and interests among different individuals, that is the beauty of a good state. So Aristotle may be the first ethical, moral, political individualist. Right. Sophists be individualist. He said, yeah, it's all about individuals' ka desire. Right. So you see individualism ka thoda shades in sophists, in Aristotle, but Hobbes is purely an individualist. He is a pure, that's why he's called as the greatest of all individualists. Right. So Hobbes ka view of human beings as antisocial and and his concern for the individual ka implications kya hai? What are the implications? What are the implications? Number one, no telos or common good or eudaimonia. Or eudaimonia. Because eudaimonia was declared by Aristotle and Plato, a life worth living. Common good, individuals coming together, forming rules, living together in the company of others, a social being. Ye sab nothing, bakwas. Then medievals bolte the summum bonum. The good life, where everybody is happy. Summum bonum, the common good of medieval times. Right. Living life according to how God wants us, according to morality. Okay. And there is no final, no ultimate good. Or no perpetual tranquility, nirvana, a state of permanent happiness. Nothing of the sort is real, Hobbes is saying. Right? He is saying good and evil, it is completely based on individual preferences. If we like something, we call it good. If we dislike something, we call it evil. Okay? But one common, yaad hai? What everybody likes, survival, zinda rehna. That is one thing that everybody calls good. That is the basic good. Right. So this is Hobbes' understanding of human nature. So this implications ko we can use it as conclusion. And you can add some extra points here, where you can say that Hobbes बिकॉज हमने इंट्रो किया, कॉन्टेक्स्ट किया, पूरा बॉडी स्टेप बाय स्टेप किया, बट एक कंक्लूजन भी करते हैं. हॉब्स इज द फर्स्ट थिंकर टू प्रूव इक्वालिटी अमंग मेन. Equality among men. He was the first true individualist. And he was the first proper theoretical thinker. कैसे? पहला fact. How? Let's say first is fact. What is fact? Universe is made up of matter. Then comes the assumption. That is, ये internal motion, it causes the desires. जैसे मैथ्स में बोलते हैं ना, let's assume x is equal to this value and then you continue with the formula. So that is the assumption. उस assumption को तुम थियराइज करते हो. क्या थियरी? ह्यूमन नेचर. So what is the next topic I'm going to teach you? State of nature. That is, humans are selfish, seeking power, and in human beings को तुम एक particular स्थिति में डालोगे. In a situation, in an imaginary, hypothetical situation. It's like fighter fish, you've heard? Fighter fish, right? So you buy fighter fish, okay, and put them in an aquarium. What will they do? They will fight to the death, right? So पहले आप डिफाइंड क्या फाइटर फिश का प्रॉपर्टीज क्या है, क्या क्या करते हैं, उनका हरकतें क्या है, उनका फीचर्स क्या है, उनका बिहेवियरल प्रोपेंसिटीज क्या है. Then you put them in a particular environment, in an aquarium, in an ecosystem, in a situation, in a condition, in a paristhiti, in a vatavaran. Where will they go? They're trapped in that aquarium. They have to fight to death. Death match है वो. ठीक है. Same thing. So state of nature is like an aquarium where you are putting the individuals Hobbes has defined as power hungry and equally capable of killing each other, and you put them in that state of nature. So state of nature में क्या है feature? What is the only feature of the state of nature? The main feature. It has no government. Remember what is government? Government is an artificial man-made institution. So in a state of nature, there is no artificial institution. So government को गायब करो. So like I said, close your eyes and imagine when the government is gone, what will happen? Fight. So fact, assumption, first he says about human nature, then he puts those human beings in a particular situation, a hypothetical situation which he calls the state of nature. Then he justifies. In अगर ऐसे लड़ाई हो रहा है, तुम्हें क्या चाहिए? How do we stop the लड़ाई among human beings? A sovereign government that will control our behavior. So from the state of nature, he concludes the need for a sovereign government. है ना? So this is a step-by-step theory he has done, and is the first thinker to do it in the modern world. हाँ, Aristotle also theorized कि the evolution of state. Plato also did कि individuals, household बनता है, then villages, then state. वो अपने imaginary था. See how he is doing. He was influenced by scientific materialism, Galileo, physics, right? So because he is the first to say men are equal, he is the first true individualist, he is the first theoretical thinker. We can say in the conclusion, in the last point of this discussion, that Hobbes, his understanding of human nature and his theory makes him the first modern thinker